All right. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvichavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki
Everybody please mute yourselves.
Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Abhi theek hai? Voice, Joe? Just give me a thumbs up. It's okay? Yeah. And everybody has a device, so uska bhi hota hai. Your own device can also, you can increase the volume. I have put mine on the maximum now. Okay, so we were on verse 21. We discussed about it, and we have to still read Swamiji's commentary. That's where we were. And I can chant again. I think that gives a good start. Nirashiyartha chittatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham. Okay, let's see. Who has not read for a while? Neeluji, you want to read? You haven't read for a while? Oh, we can hear you, Neeluji. Unmute, please. Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Without hope, with the mind and self-controlled, having abandoned all sense of possessions, doing mere bodily action, he incurs no sin.
So here, just to remind you that we had discussed in detail about, here, without hope, you have to take it in the right context. Means he doesn't worry about future, just lives in the present. Self-controlled and having abandoned all sense of possession means clinging attachment to the things that around him. Mental clinging attachment. He does merely body action and he incurs no sin. And basically, here Swamiji is going to tell us that how every action, it all depends on our mind. Whether it will bind you or not is nothing to do with the action, it's everything to do with mind. The motive and the way we connect to the mind and the what you call identification with body, mind, and intellect. So just keep that theme in mind and then we will understand. Go ahead.
Mere bodily activity is not action that will merit a reaction. It has already been seen that the reactions of actions take place in the mental and in the intellectual zones. An action can leave a mark on our subtle body only when we act with an egocentric consciousness that we are the actors, and these marks can be effective only when our actions are motivated by powerful and strong egocentric desires.
So here, this is what it is, that if we have this egocentric, that is the main thing.
Sorry, at what number we are?
We are on verse 21 of chapter 4.
Okay.
Page 59 of the Green Book.
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
So, everything has to do with that ego center in us. And he's going to explain more and more. And now we know ego means when we identify with body, mind, and intellect equipment. That's when all the trouble starts. And like I had mentioned last time that one of the Swami put it so well. Once you have the identification, you get buy one, 10 get free. 10 free. It's like all the problems start of karma phal, and past, present, future, and constantly like living in that consciousness creates a lot of problems. So that's what we have to remember. Go ahead.
Ego is created only when the self, in its assumed delusion, identifies itself with the body, mind, and intellect and their respective fields of objects. This ego draws its sustenance from the hopes of the future and also from the satisfaction of the present possessions.
So there are the two things that feed the ego, and that's what it is. The hopes of the future feeds the ego, and satisfaction in the present possession. Oh, ye mera hai, ye sab, those kind of thing. And there is one more thing with the ego, which here it's not mentioned, but in the past they have mentioned, is when we have regrets of the past. That also it feeds the ego. So all three things, can feed the ego. So if you can see, one of the things that you have to remember is that when they talk about all these things, they are talking about a man of, realized wisdom, Sita Pragna's Lakshana. So it might look a very tall order for us, but at least we know what the goal is and we can work towards it. And we can try to chip off our slowly few things that we are more aware of it now, what feeds the ego and all that. So we have to just learn to kind of stay away from it.
Umaji, can you just explain a little bit about possessions? Because we're talking about the action. And what do we mean by possession at this point? Do we possess? I mean, we talk about the possessions of things, etc. But that shouldn't be the concern when we're doing actions. Does that action mean something else in here?
No, but in general, like everything is kind of tied together. See, when we are doing action, where our mindset is, that is also very important, right? If we are very attached to things around it, our action are not going to be good. So you cannot separate it.
I can think about desire. Okay, if you desire something and desire about the fruits of the actions, yes, at that point, action and its desires seems, in line or consistent. But when we talk about things, when I'm doing any action, whether it's with a desire, I'm not thinking, well, I have this, and,
Okay, I'll give you a very simple example. Suppose if we are very attached to our things. Have you seen some people, when you go to their house, they are like, you have to literally walk on eggshell because their house looks like a perfect and they are so attached to it. कुछ भी गंदा नहीं हो जाए भाई. वो attachment हो गया कि नहीं? It does affect it affects everything. Because it's like a mindset, too much attachment to things, it will flow in everything in our life. So
you mean the other things even? Okay, this is a house, I have possessions, TK, sub-TK. But when I'm working, where is my mind going to be with the things which are in my storage, which are in my...
No, not about those things, but directly things that are related to your action. See, possession...
But possession is the word that's bothering me, possession.
Because you are looking at the possession word just as a meaning of possession, but यहाँ पर possession दिया हुआ है when you are not attached to things. Because this is related to the previous verses. When he's talking about clinging attachment to things and beings around it, that's called being possessive. And doesn't have to be, remember, it doesn't have to be material things. In fact, at our age, we have more problem with mental attachment to our emotions, with our children, grandchildren, this, that, So and friends, relations and things like that. Material को हम लोग अभी और लेके क्या करेंगे? We are trying to get rid of things. People are downsizing and doing all that. But the other attachment, all of that comes under that. So one of the things while studying Bhagavad Gita is that all these terms have a very wide implication. And, you have to carry all that implication with you as you're going along, and then it will open up. And that's why I always say that 1 or 2 readings doesn't do in Bhagavad Gita. You got to constantly churn upon it, constantly read, and then it sinks in more and more and more. So here, possession, mainly they are talking about when we feel attached to things, being, circumstances. That's called possession over here.
Umaji, could it be like if someone wants to start an orphanage, but then he says, I'm going to start the biggest and the best orphanage.
Exactly. So then he's attached to name and fame.
Right.
and then my legacy has to stay back and all that. He's less concerned about those kids in there. True. So motivation, where it is coming from. And a sthita prajna person who is established in the highest, he will just say, jahan par bhi need hogi, he will just do it. And he's not even going to say that put my name on it. So.
I had a question too. So the three things you mentioned, Umaji, hopes of the future, satisfaction of the present possessions, और तीसरी बात आपने बोली regrets of the past, जो कि पहले हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया था. तो I think at our stage, hopes of the future, how much future is left, उतना नहीं होता है, बच्चे अब अपना, वो उनकी life है and so on. Present possessions में भी like you said इतना नहीं है कि भाई ये हो वो हो, unless of course you are attached to your kids and grandkids. But I think the biggest thing at this stage of my life is regrets of the past, because the past period is much bigger than present or future, and I have regrets, and when I sit and I think about it, I feel I wish I could have done this differently, done that differently, done more for this person, and so on. So I feel sometimes that makes me a better person, in a sense that अपनी कमियां पता चलती हैं, अपनी कमियां realize कर रहे हैं. तो what exactly do you mean by saying don't have regrets of the past?
I think that if you have learned your lesson from the past, see, one of the things is that purity of mind is most important, right? So when we are doing regrets of the past, the regrets of this kind, अरे मैं ऐसा करती तो क्या होता, but you did what you thought was best at that time. You couldn't have, and then there are no reverse gear in life, is there? You cannot go back and fix. So there's no point, whatever. So as long as you are looking at it as a lesson, it's totally fine. Nobody's saying that हमको memory हटा देनी है, उससे हमको मलिन नहीं करना है अपना मन. और कई लोग होते हैं कि बोलते हैं कि वो लोग ना प्रेजेंट में ना रोते ही रहते हैं, या तो ये सोच के कि हाय मैं ऐसा करती तो इसलिए रोएंगे, या कोई अभी बोलते हैं माई सर्कमस्टांसेस इज नॉट वेरी गुड, पहले बहुत अच्छा था, तो वो याद करके फिर रोना शुरू कर देते हैं. So main thing is, as long as you are not making your mind upset and regrets and all that, those kind of regrets. Nobody's saying that don't learn your lesson. As an intelligent human being, we should learn a lesson, and not, if you have hurt somebody and all that, we should go and ask for forgiveness, put our ego aside. And if you have realized that you have, we all, when we were young, we didn't know about all these things. So we have said things, we have done things, but at least now you know better. So all these things, we cannot take it like just a word meaning and, just forget about the past and remove all your memory. That's not what it means. All it's saying is, अपने मन को साफ रखो. और regrets past का करके कोई फायदा नहीं है, because you cannot go in the past. So just work on it right now. और प्रायश्चित से तो सब धुल जाता है. We know that. अगर किसी को ये एहसास हो गया कि मेरे से गलती हो गई है और उसने अगर माफी वगैरह मांग ली तो definitely all that is being washed away. So any other?
Thank you. That makes sense.
And Umaji, okay, the ego draws its sustenance from the hopes of the future. Okay, we are looking for the results as well as happiness in the future.
Yeah, exactly right. Because our mind is not in the present and iska result kya hoga or log kya kahenge. Anything it can be 100 different things. So like as we move forward with the next verse and all that, you will see that how the person who is self-realized, usko फल की चिंता है ही नहीं. He's happy, संतुष्ट उसमें दिया हुआ है word. The next man.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's like a complete satisfaction. कुछ मिल गया तो ठीक है, नहीं है तो ठीक है, because I'm complete anyway.
Yes.
It's like when I assume a role, I think the best example could be a person who does acting. He's got his own home, and now उसको जाके भिखारी का role करना पड़ रहा है. Is he going to worry about it? No. That's how this person is. He said, I'm a fulfilled man. I'm just playing a role. So I'll play the best bhikari out there. you know, that's what. And it's hard for us. And one of the Swami, he cautioned us that it is, and he gave such a beautiful example. He said, it's like somebody says, experience the zero gravity. I cannot experience that sitting on this earth. Only people who have gone in the space know it's like. I can hear about it, I can see pictures, I can do all that. So he's saying the state of a realized soul is like that. We don't know, we cannot imagine ourselves. How can somebody live like this? But there are. And then we have to learn from them. And he's saying, और कुछ नहीं हो तो उसको imagine करो वैसी state को. Or try to emulate it, And slowly we will get there, So that's what it is. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Shall we move forward? Go ahead.
Therefore, the stanza declares that an individual, when he was completely renounced desires, when he has brought his body and mind under perfect control, and when he has relinquished all sense of possessions, can no longer sustain the illusionary concept of the ego in him. When the ego has ended, the actions performed by that individual's body become incapable of leaving any permanent mark upon his mental constitution or on his intellectual character.
So here, the three things he has put as A, B, and C now. The three things that feeds the ego, and we can look at it reverse way. We can tell, hey, do I have an ego? Do I have any of these three things? If I have any of these three things, that means my ego is strong. So whichever way you want to look at it, but basically it is, and then it says, no, it doesn't leave any permanent mark on a mental constitution. And one of the Swamis gave such a beautiful example. It's like the bird flying in the sky. Does it leave any mark? No. When we walk on the sand or something, we leave our nishan, right? When the bird flies, it doesn't leave anything on the sky or the air or anything. It's just, so that's how his actions, दुनिया वाले सोचेंगे कि ये तो सेम ही एक्शन लग रहा है, but उसका जो internal working है उसमें कोई भी impression नहीं पड़ता है उसमें. He's like that mirror that we talked about. Something comes, it reflects, and transactions happen, and boom, clears everything when it's gone. That's what it is. And जो मैंने वो कहावत बोली थी ना, I was thinking about it last time. नेकी कर कुएं में डाल. That's what it's referring to. Not the vyavarik sense ki, if I'm giving donation. We were discussing, Geeta ji, that if I'm giving donation, then maybe that's a vyavarik thing. Somebody can do that. Hey, I did it, you did it, do it too, because it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong in that. But here, neki kar kuएं में डाल is from that perspective. ये वाला perspective में. He just does the job, and he has no ego about it. He just moves on because it was a call of the hour to get it done. He got it done, and boom, move forward. Yeah, go ahead.
In sleep, if I become naked, I am not charged with indecent behavior. If in my sleep, my body kicks my own son, I am not accused of cruelty to my child. For in both the above cases, we know that for the actions of my body, I am not responsible, since I was absent in that body during those activities. This clearly shows that the egocentric identity with the body is the actor and the sufferer. And where the ego is not, there the mere bodily actions cannot bring about any consequences.
So he's just kind of giving that example to tell you that if you are not connected with the body, it cannot create any impressions in the karma. It's kind of hard for us to understand, but he gave that example of कोई नींद में कुछ लात वात मार दे तो हम उसको थोड़ी punish करेंगे, because he didn't know what he was doing, or a small child kicks a mother. We don't punish them because it just doesn't know what he's doing. So that's what it is.
A self-realized saint's activities do not touch him at all, since he is not the actor. The actions only flow through him. Such a truly great one becomes not a doer of actions, but serves as a glorious instrument for the Lord's will to express itself.
So now you know that even how you become the correct instrument. And that is why most of the saints and sages, उनसे जो काम होते हैं ना, वो हम लोग की समझ से तो पार होते हैं. We cannot understand how do they accomplish so much and such big tasks, because they are not doing it themselves. It is being done by a higher authority through them, you know. And the more our ego is down, the bigger use we will come to for Bhagwan. That's what it is. And koi ekdam hi khali kar de, to he becomes a complete instrument. So most of these totally realized soul are like that. That's why, you know, jo Bhagwan ko kaam karwana hota hai, and we will see in Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjun in chapter 11 that, you know, you become my instrument, you know, nimitta matra bhava. And he also told him that all these people, whether you kill them or not, they have to die. अगर तू नहीं करेगा तो I'll bring somebody else, because कर्म फल उनको मिलना ही था वो. So अगर ये हमारा ईगो होता है कि वो अगर अर्जुन फाइट नहीं करता तो शायद वॉर खत्म नहीं होता. No, it would have happened exactly the way it was meant to be. You just take the glory because भगवान has given you that, बोलते ना, सम्मान दिया तुमको. That's what, because you become capable for it. That's what it's pointing towards.
If the music coming from a violin is not good, the audience does not attack the violin, although the violinist cannot be very safe. The violin of its own accord does not make music, but it allows music to emanate from it at the touch of the flying bow and the trickling fingers of the performer. Its duties end when its supple chords have bent under the touch of the musician's dancing fingers. An egoless man of perfection is the wonder instrument through which the divine orchestra, playing, singing the song of the Lord's own will faithfully. Any activity undertaken by a perfect master does not and cannot bring about any consequences, good or evil. Upon him, he is only a divine instrument.
So here he opened it up completely, and you know, the violin example is such a good one. You know, so that's what it is, that, you know, how to become the instrument and what does it mean by that. That's what it told us. So I hope it's all clear. Anybody has any question, we can discuss that. So that's,
I thought that all the examples were very good, including the one about sleeping and kicking your son while you are in deep sleep. Again, that although the body will do actions, but you are not attached to what is happening, and therefore it does not count as any action on your part. And likewise, you know, the violin example, I thought they are both very, very good examples.
Yeah, I think that is a hallmark of Chinmayanandji, that he always brings absolutely to the worldly example that we can immediately understand that, you know, because that is happening right in front of our eyes, all these things. And we can relate, because sometimes, you know, if you read Bhagavad Gita just as a translation, so it doesn't sink in what they mean, you know, but this is why it opens it up. And that's why it is so important to be rooted in some Mahatma's commentary. Then it doesn't let us go on wrong tangents. And in Kathopanishad, you will see that the words we are going to do today, that with Adha Kacha Pakka Gyan se kitna, but the Andha is leading the Andha. Both fall in a ditch. And then the worst thing is when people don't know and they think that they know everything. And then they start leading other people. And that's very dangerous. So that's why, you know, like in Chinmaya Mission, like our teacher in Houston used to always say, you know, Shastra Praman. Even I have heard other people say that. Shastra Praman is the most important thing, because it's a very subtle subject. So you don't want to create your own theories and things like that. You want to go by this and try to understand from a Mahatma's point of view, a person who has himself experienced that. So, you know, that's why we kind of do it this way. That's how we were trained to do the study group, you know, rooted in this. Keeps us online. So, any other question? There is this connecting paragraph you can read.
Yeah. Though a self-realized man renounces all actions, he has, of necessity, still to maintain his body, Such a man who is steady on the path of knowledge is ever liberated. To teach this, the Lord says.
So, and whenever we are talking about the next verse also, you will see that it is a very hi-fi stuff because we are talking from that perspective. So for this realized soul, everything happens very smoothly and very spontaneously. Like no sense of possession. It was spontaneous hai uska, because he's rooted in that knowledge so much. For us, it is a sadhana. So for us, we have to practice it, and we can just every day. But if we know our goal, then only we can move towards it. So that's how we have to look at it. Okay, so shall I go to the next verse?
Yeah.
22. यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टः द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समसिद्धावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते. यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टः, content with what comes to him without effort. Dvandva atitaha, free from the pairs of opposite. Vimatsaraha. So ye matsara actually is the word. Matsara means jealousy, and V is like no jealousy. Without, free from envy. Samaha is even-minded. Siddhau in success. Asiddhau in failure. Cha is and. Krutva is acting. Api is even. No is not. Nibadhyante is bound. So basically he's saying, जैसे बोलते हैं ना कि अपने प्रारब्ध में जो है वो मिल जाए उसमें खुश. Not going like doing so much self-effort for worldly things. That's what it is. So that's why they say that अगर self-effort करना है ना, तो do it for self-realization. Don't do this so much घटपट for, because जो तुम्हारे प्रारब्ध में है वो आ ही जाएगा तुम्हारे पास. उसके लिए he doesn't run around. Free from pairs of opposite. So it's not that usko sukh dukh nahi aata hai. So we should not be under some wrong impression that the person's life is like a total bliss. Bodily affliction usko bhi aayega. So hamare jaise hi sab kuch hoega. And if somebody cuts his body, it will hurt him. It's not like he's not above all that, but he accepts it even-mindedness. He knows that this is just belongs to the body, everything, and I am not the body. He knows it so well that's why. And for our purpose, I think, if we remember that, we will have a more courage to handle positive, negative, जो constantly roller coaster हमारी life होती है ना, we will have a better. That's how we have to look at it. So even-minded, and then this even-minded word has come before in chapter 2, a very, very famous word, samatvam yoga uchyate, means the yoga is evenness of mind. Krishna Bhagavan declared that. Keeping the mind sama, ऊपर नीचे, जो जितने भी pairs of opposites हैं, वो उससे हम affect नहीं होते हैं. And pairs of opposite in the world is almost like the two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. Impossible. So that's what it is. It is both are going to come to you. There's no question about it. And then, though acting, he's not bound. So worldly sense में वो लगेगा कि he's like acting just like us. But only difference between him and us is we get bound by our action. He does not. Because,
Anji, on my Geeta class. Hello? I'll go in the other room. 1 second.
You can just mute Neeluji. So now the word santushtaha. We have what is tushta is the word sa laga ke usko ekdam fully santushta means he doesn't have any cravings of any kind. He's satisfied with whatever he got. And I gave you that example of that one fruit wala who was sitting in the Banaras and he said, "Main Ram ji ko lootunga kya?" Aur kisi ne bola ki, And then our teacher used to say that, this one doctor said that this Mexican guy was sitting in front of him. And the doctor felt, bichara, pura, he's like poor guy and all that. So he thought कि maybe ये मेरी fees नहीं afford कर सकता or something. And the guy said, don't worry, doc, I got $200 with me. Don't worry, I got two. He felt so satisfied with what he had. So satisfaction is, actually nothing to do with your possession. It's a state of mind. That how much you feel. Somebody cannot feel satisfied even with $50 million because they want 100. And others can be like totally. And you will meet people who don't have much, but they're totally happy. And in that little also, they are willing to share it. I have seen it with my own eyes. वो जितने लोग हाई-फाई और रिच होते हैं ना उतने महाकंजूस होते हैं. And the people who are like down to earth, जो भी थोड़ा बहुत होगा, they totally will give it up and share it. So that's what it is. This person is totally santush, nothing to do with outside circumstances. And then the second part is whatever comes to him as he moves in the world, he is totally happy with it without any expectation. He's not gonna fight it or anything, and he's not putting any effort, because remember that one verse I talk about yoga and shame. We learned about yoga and shame in the Kathopanishad, that something that I need and something that to protect. Bhagwan ne promise kiya hua hai in chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita, that if you surrender to me, I'll take care of your yoga and shame. So this fellow has no worries. And in an extreme case, we talked about the stories of all these Mahatmas who don't carry any food, nothing, but when they need it, it comes to them. We may not, so for us, okay, we cannot be in that stage, but we can at least try not to worry in our own life. क्या होगा? What if छोड़ देना चाहिए हम लोगों को, That's what it is for us, for our sadhana. So that's what he's mentioning over here. So he's just happy with, body के maintenance के लिए he need things and it just comes to him by his prarabdha. And we talked about it. इसको कुछ मिले तो भी happy है, नहीं मिले तो भी happy है. And the Swami gave a beautiful example. He's saying, and you will immediately know who I'm talking about. He's saying, one day he's told, तुमको kingdom मिल गया, so he's happy. Next morning उसको बोला तो you have to go 14 years in the exile, he's happy. Because he's Sthita Prajna. Because Ram Bhagwan ne, when he was a teenager, the Yog Vashishta, Vashisht ji ne unko pura yog diya. I mean, he's Bhagwan obviously, but as a human being, he also got the self-knowledge. That's why he was so equanimous. And then the other example, he said, एक दिन तुमको बोला तुमको ड्राइवर बनना पड़ेगा अभी, वो बन गए ड्राइवर, कृष्ण भगवान बन गए ड्राइवर. और फिर जब वॉर खत्म हुआ, तुम्हारा जॉब खत्म हो गया, तो भी ठीक है. दोनों के लिए he is totally fine. That's how this sama buddhi happens, So I thought that was a great example. And here in my notes, I'm looking at it. Dvandva, we are already discussed that. What is the pairs of opposite that always come to us? And then here he talked about vimatsara, right? Jealousy. So jealousy का भी एक अपना equation होता है. You don't feel jealous of somebody out there. You don't care what he has got. Jealousy हमेशा, अपने relative, neighbors और ऐसे सब लोगों से होती है. That, so, उसको ज़्यादा है, मेरे को क्यों कम है. But this person, he knows that there are fewer objects in the world, there are more demand, and किसी को भी मिलता है, like a job application. One job and 500 applications are coming. Not everybody is going to get it. He doesn't feel jealous. He will say whoever deserved it got it. From our worldly perspective, people will start ऊपर नीचे करना शुरू कर देंगे. Oh, that person has less qualification and he got it, blah blah and all that. उसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. So those kind of things, that मत्सर नहीं है उसके पास. And yeah, I think those are the main things. So we can go and read it. Any question on these things? And I already gave that example of, that this state is from the highest perspective. So even though it may look outlandish to us, but this is how this person behaves. For us, we have to just imagine, try to copy it, try to be there. That's how our sadhana is. Shall we read any question on this point? Okay. Who wants to read? Meena ji, you want to read?
content with what comes to him without effort, free from the pair of opposites in envy, even minded in success and failure, though acting he is not bound. Such an individual who has gone beyond his own ego can thereafter commence no desire prompted activity with any definite fruit motive. Naturally, he will feel quite contented and happy in whatever gain spontaneously rises out of his actions. The state of egolessness indicates a condition of perfect conquest over the mind and intellect. Naturally, therefore, the pairs of opposites, heat and cold, success and failure, good and bad, joy and sorrow, etc., cannot affect him, they being always the interpretations of the world of objects by the mind.
I just wanted to bring one point that, Swami Chinmayananji explains that we have three equipments like body, mind and intellect. So body level पे अपने को like heat, cold ऐसी feeling होती है, right? Pain and things like that. And then mind में we get this सुख दुख की feeling होती है. और intellect में मान अपमान की होती है कि ओ उसने मेरा मान नहीं रखा, उसने मेरा अपमान कर दिया वगैरह वगैरह. So ये जो है ना वो तीनों बॉडी के जो चीजें we face, all three levels, it doesn't affect him,
Where the mind has ended, the intellect too can no more bring its own affections and prejudice or its spirit of competitions and jealousies. We generally get agitated due to the poles of success and failure. On the rising tide of success, our ego dances in a vain joy, while the hollows of failures, it feels miserable and crushed. But when the ego is completely divinized, the individual will thereafter automatically remain equanimous in both success and failure. Such an individual who has thus conquered his egocentric misconceptions about himself, though acting is not fettered by the natural consequences of the actions performed, karma phala. Want me to go ahead read?
Yeah, go ahead read.
Okay. When such a perfect master of realization lives amidst us, he is generally seen to act in no way different from an ordinary sensible man, and yet all the same, his activities show an extra dynamic capacity to carve out a more complete and enduring success. According to the Lord's words, the activities of a man of knowledge do not, in any sense of the term, affect him. Naturally, it becomes a little difficult for an ordinary man to know readily how this is accomplished by the sage. To explain the divine motive and attitude with which men of perfection act in the world, the following 9 stanzas are declared by the Lord.
So now, after this, very, very interesting verses are going to be coming. So basically, here it is ego का पूरा चक्कर दिखाया है that how that he doesn't, because he doesn't have an ego, he doesn't have any affliction, prejudice, ये वो, because ego is a very subtle thing in us. And sometimes, when we start studying Bhagavad Gita and all those things, तो भी ego rise होना शुरू हो जाता है. Oh, I am so pious, I am doing this, I am doing that, and we may start looking down upon other people. See how it happens? Oh, that person, it doesn't do, I'm better than them. That also is a problem, according to Bhagavad Gita. You have to be kind to other people. That's why these saints and sages, they are never judgmental about other people. They will never, if somebody is having some trouble, they will look at a very, bolte na, sahanubhuti se. That let me help this person, like that. And there is a very famous example. I don't know if Meena ji and Sushil ji have heard this about Chinmayananji, that because when he was there, in his body on this earth, there were a lot of Americans who used to come to his talks also, So whenever he gave a talk, and then sometimes, like how it's an open talk, anybody can come. There was no restriction. Whoever wanted to listen to him, they were allowed. But उनके जो भक्त होते हैं, वो लोग थोड़ा control करना शुरू कर देते हैं, right? कि भाई इसको ये ऐसा है वो वैसा है. So it seems that when he was giving a talk, one guy, like almost homeless looking type of guy with a hand in his beard walked in, and so the organizers were like, कौन आ गया इसको भगाओ यहाँ से, and so they were trying to, and he gave a इशारा इधर आओ, और उसको अपने पास बिठाया, और बाद में उन्होंने वो organizers को बोला, he needs me more than all of you need me. See how compassionate he is. So he's not like, that's how a Mahatma is. He's not like, he's there to help everybody, no matter who they are. And I know that Shri Ravi Shankar ji, he actually goes to prisons and all that to give his, little, he talks to the prisoners and all that. And he was saying that उनको थोड़ा सा योग करवा दो, थोड़ा सा कुछ करवा दो ना, उनका मेंटल मेकअप चेंज हो जाता है. और फिर some of them वो फूट के रोए कि भाई हमने ऐसा कैसे कर दिया, मतलब जो भी उन्होंने क्राइम किया होगा. He said कि they could not understand that what happened to them that they did that, because their mind had become a little quiet. So I thought these stories are so inspiring that we can practice by becoming non-judgmental, of anybody, because they are whatever they are. And our teacher used to always say that, in the family, like सास बहू का कुछ होता था. पुराने ज़माने में ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम था. सास used to be so controlling, and then people say, oh, आज के ज़माने में हम लोग थोड़ी ऐसा करते हैं, मतलब we are such great सास, we don't do, our सास did that to us. उसकी सास ने तो और भी. When I hear my mom's story, I'm like horrified. What she used to tell us, if you were in that sas's position, you would have done the exactly same thing. So don't have this great ego about yourself. They were victim of their own circumstances. उनको भी इतना control किया गया, ये किया गया, वो किया गया, that they became like that. So these people who are at that stage, they really look at things very, very differently. You have to really kind of analyze it, and then we understand, where they're coming from, so. And we have sometimes, I'll let you, discuss what is coming next. So the next one, it's like tells you by doing what this person becomes like this, because this looks like beyond our reach, right? All these state ke log kaise karte hain. So then he's talking about that how this person has no attachment and he is established in that knowledge. And that brings us back to that sthita prajna, because he has the knowledge and he is completely established in it. Our difference in us is we are not completely established in it. We appreciate the knowledge, we know it's good, we are not complete. And then he has the experience of it, and then once he is established, he sees this whole universe as Brahman. जिसमें बोलते हैं ना, जैसे कि कण कण में राम, like in Ramayana they will say, that's what he looks at. That's why he doesn't have any judgment, because he just looks at it as some kind of play, and then the example is given, and then the Brahmarpanam, if you guys know that verse, Brahmarpanam Brahma Havihi Brahmagno Brahmanahutam. We say this before eating, and it is describing yagna. And Kamla ji is here in the class, and she does all this homam and yagna and all that. And उसका जो पूरा concept है कि सब कुछ ब्राह्मण ही है, घी भी ब्राह्मण है, और जिसको invoke कर रहे हैं हमारा गंतव्य भी वही है, means our lakshya is also that, pandits are also all Brahman only, everything is Brahman. That's how he lives. And Swamiji gives an example. It's like in the ocean, everything is H2O. And the waves are jumping on each other. It looks like different waves, but actually it's all H2O. That's how he looks at it. And then there are 12 yagnas given. This is the highest form. So it's the Upanishadic style, and Geeta is done in the exactly same style. You give the highest first, and then you go step down. So then it will talk about 12 different yagnas that we could perform to reach that highest state. So you can do in your own sadhana, you can pick up whichever you feel more conducive about, So those kind of things are going to be coming in this one. I don't want to kind of start this because we want, the next one is very long. So, but whoever has a book can read in advance. It helps, I can do the little bit, I can chant it, I can do the Sanskrit, and we can go a little bit about it, and then we will. Any question on this? Whatever we discussed. Okay, so verse 23. Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavastita chetasaha yajnaya charata karma samagram praviliyate. Gata sangasya, one who is devoid of attachment. Muktasya, of the liberated. Jnana avasthita chetasaha, whose mind is established in knowledge. Yajnayaha, for sacrifice. Acharataha, acting. Karma, action. Samagram, whole. Praviliyate, is dissolved. So here, since we are just discussing, I'll just read this translation. Of one who is